July 19, 2015, 9:47 a.m. Every screen inside Avid Life Media's Toronto office displays the same threat. A group called the Impact Team says it has 37 million user records, and it'll dump them all unless Ashley Madison shuts down in 30 days. That's names, home addresses, and credit card transactions from the world's largest cheating site. But here's what the hackers also found. 95% of the women on the platform weren't real. The company built 70,000 bots to keep men paying. It charged $19 to delete your profile, except it didn't actually delete anything. The deadline passed, then the internet tore 37 million lives apart. It started in 2001. Darren Morgenstern, a Toronto entrepreneur, saw a gap no dating platform wanted to touch. Married people looking for affairs. He built Ashley Madison, named it after two of the most common baby names that year, and gave it a slogan that wrote itself. Life is short, have an affair. The site didn't invent infidelity, it just made it convenient. A profile, a photo, a search filter by zip code. By 2007, Avid Life Media had revenue north of $20 million a year. Then Noel Biderman took over as CEO in 2008, and the whole thing accelerated. Biderman didn't hide what the company was. He went on talk shows. He tried to buy Super Bowl ad time. Interviews defending infidelity as a public service became his signature move, arguing that affairs saved marriages by keeping unhappy spouses from divorcing. Media covered him constantly because the story was irresistible. A man in a suit sitting across from news anchors, calmly explaining why cheating was good for society. By 2014, Ashley Madison claimed 37 million registered users across 46 countries. Growth looked unstoppable, but the product had a problem. That problem was the women, or more specifically, the absence of women. Internal company data would later show that of the millions of accounts, roughly 90 to 95% belonged to men. The ratio was so lopsided that management decided to fix it. Not by attracting real women, but by manufacturing fake ones. Developers built software they called angels. Bot accounts with generated photos, fabricated bios, and automated behavior. These bots sent messages to male users. They initiated chats and flirted with pre-written responses. And every time a man wanted to respond, the site charged him credits. According to internal documents, 80% of first purchases on Ashley Madison happened because a man tried to reply to a bot. That's not a dating platform. That's a slot machine dressed up as a woman. On top of the bots, the company offered something called the full delete. $19 to permanently erase your profile and all associated data. Users who'd gotten cold feet paid it gladly. $1.7 million a year came from that feature alone. Except full delete didn't delete anything. All of it stayed. Names remained in the database, addresses sat on file, and transaction records were still intact. Every piece of data the company promised to destroy was still sitting on their servers. On the surface, Avid Life Media looked like a company printing money. Biderman told reporters the site would go public. Revenue projections climbed every quarter. But behind the numbers, the infrastructure holding all of it together was fragile. Email addresses at sign-up weren't verified. Anyone could register any address, whether it belonged to a spouse, a co-worker, or a senator. There was no confirmation step. Password security was built on bcrypt, which is strong, but an older backup system still stored 11 million passwords using MD5, a method so weak that researchers would later crack those hashes in hours. Former employees and contractors had rotated through with deep access to internal systems. When they left, that access wasn't always revoked. And the data itself, 37 million records containing the most personally damaging information a person could volunteer, sat behind standard corporate security. User profiles had no special encryption. Access wasn't segmented. Nobody assumed that a breach of this data would be categorically different from a breach of a retail company's customer list. Management treated its users' secrets the same way it treated its promises, carelessly. On July 12, 2015, an engineer at Avid Life Media noticed something wrong in the database management system. Someone was pulling records they shouldn't have access to. Management launched an internal investigation. 7 days later, on July 19th, the answer arrived on every employee's screen. A message from a group calling itself the Impact Team. They had everything, from user records and transaction histories to internal emails and the full source code. AC/DC's Thunderstruck played in the background of the message. Their demand was specific. Shut down Ashley Madison and its sister site, Established Men, within 30 days. If the sites were still live on August 18th, every record would be published on the open internet. Biderman's first instinct was that it came from inside. He pointed investigators toward a former contractor who'd had system-level access. But that lead collapsed fast. The suspect had died by suicide in 2014, more than a year before the breach. Avid Life Media posted public statements. It waived the deletion fee. It hired cybersecurity consultants. But the site did not shut down. 30 days isn't much time when you're protecting 37 million secrets. It's even less when you've already lost them. August 18th. The deadline expired. Ashley Madison was still online. That evening, a file appeared on a dark web address accessible only through the Tor browser. A single BitTorrent link containing 9.7 gigabytes. Inside were the records of every person who'd ever created an account. Real names attached to home addresses, the last 4 digits of credit cards, dates of birth, GPS coordinates from mobile logins, sexual preferences described in the user's own words. Within hours, mirrors of the data spread across the open internet. It wasn't just on the dark web anymore. Anyone with a browser could search it. 2 days later, on August 20th, a second dump appeared. 12.7 gigabytes of internal company files, including Noel Biderman's corporate email inbox, strategy documents, and financial records. And the full source code of Ashley Madison, including the bot system, the fake profiles, and the deletion feature that didn't work. Avid Life Media's public position was that the data might be fabricated. Security researchers checked it against known records within 24 hours. Every record matched known data. Things moved fast after that. Within days, searchable databases appeared online. Type any email address and find out if it was in the leak. Journalists, spouses, employers, and strangers all had equal access to the same records. Josh Duggar, the 27-year-old face of a conservative Christian reality show called 19 Kids and Counting, showed up with nearly $1,000 in transactions. He admitted to infidelity on August 20th and entered a rehab facility 5 days later. 15,000 email addresses belonged to government and military domains. 6,700 from the Army alone, 1,600 from the Navy, 800 from the Marines. At the Pentagon, officials acknowledged they were looking into the matter. In Saudi Arabia, where adultery is punishable by death, 1,200 email addresses from the kingdom appeared in the data. LGBTQ users in countries with anti-homosexuality laws were suddenly exposed to governments that could prosecute them. Extortion emails began arriving within 48 hours. Criminals demanded $200 or more in Bitcoin from people whose names appeared in the leak. One company built a paid search tool, enter a colleague's email, and if it matched, they'd send the target a threatening letter unless money was paid. What started as a data breach had become a weapon anyone could pick up. On August 24th, 6 days after the first dump, Toronto police held a press conference. 2 unconfirmed suicides had been linked to the breach. Officers also reported a rise in hate crimes connected to the leaked information. In the United States, a pastor and professor at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary took his own life. His name had appeared in the data. Proving a direct link between the leak and any single death was difficult, but the pattern was consistent. People whose private choices were suddenly public, with no warning and no way to undo it. Biderman's own corporate emails, released in the second dump, revealed that the CEO of the world's most famous infidelity site had been conducting affairs himself. On the very platform he ran, he resigned on August 28th. Ruby Corp, the company's new name, dropped the old branding and tried to disappear. A class action lawsuit was filed seeking $567 million. In July 2017, Ruby Corp settled for $11.2 million, less than 2% of what was originally demanded. Nobody from the Impact team was ever identified. No arrests were made. No one claimed responsibility. After the hack, Ashley Madison hired a new security team. Two-factor verification, encrypted browsing, and PCI compliance were all implemented. In 2016, the company confirmed publicly what the leaked data had already proven. It had used chatbots to lure users into paying for conversations with people who didn't exist. That admission was buried in a regulatory filing. It got almost no press. Families that fell apart because of the leak didn't reassemble. Extortion victims didn't get refunds. People who paid $19 to delete their data discovered that their information was still out there, cached, mirrored, indexed by search engines, and archived on servers they'd never heard of. That data will outlive most of the marriages it destroyed, and the site itself never went away. Ashley Madison is still operational today. It still markets to married people. Management changed the slogan briefly in 2016 to Find Your Moment, then switched back to Life is Short, have an affair within a year. If you're the kind of viewer who wants to understand how a single breach turns 37 million private decisions into public property, subscribe to Digital Crime Scene. We go this deep every time. Impact team demanded that Ashley Madison shut down. Management refused. 37 million records hit the open internet and never came back. Biderman resigned after his own affairs surfaced in the data he was supposed to protect. Nobody from the Impact team was ever identified or arrested. A $567 million lawsuit settled for $11.2 million, about 30 cents per exposed user. And Ashley Madison is still online today, with more registered accounts than it had before the hack. The slogan is still the same one Morgenstern wrote in 2001.